Rain trickled down the stained glass windows of the old country church, casting soft colors across the wooden pews. The congregation sat quietly, heads bowed, as the pastor led the prayer. Near the front, a little girl with tangled braids and hand-me-down shoes knelt beside her weary mother. Her small hands were clasped tightly, eyes closed, lips moving in a silent plea only heaven could hear. Her whisper, though soft, held the weight of 1,000 tears. "Dear God, I don't want toys. I just want a dad for Mommy. She's always so sad." Her voice cracked slightly, filled with a kind of raw innocence that only children possess, pure, unfiltered, and achingly honest. Her mother, unaware of the child's prayer, simply rested her head low, lost in her own silent storm. A few rows behind them sat a stranger, a sharply dressed man in his late 40s. He looked out of place in this humble church with his tailored suit and polished shoes. Ethan Blake, a wealthy businessman from the city, had wandered into the church to escape a long, empty drive and his even emptier life. He had come seeking silence but found something else entirely. He froze when he heard the girl's words. They pierced something in him, something he thought was long buried, memories of a lonely childhood, of a mother who gave everything, and of prayers that had gone unanswered. And in that moment, his heart, once guarded by fortune and fear, began to stir. The service had ended, and the small congregation slowly filtered out into the misty parking lot. Families chatted, umbrellas opened, and the sound of distant thunder rolled over the hills. Ethan Blake stood motionless by his sleek black car, keys in hand, but not moving. The little girl's whispered prayer replayed in his mind like a broken record, "I just want a dad for Mommy." He leaned against the car door, staring out at the quiet town he'd never planned to stop in. The cold metal against his back couldn't distract him from the warmth, an ache, stirring in his chest. He hadn't stepped inside a church in over 20 years. Not since his mother's funeral. He had built his empire with steel nerves and a frozen heart, believing money could fill every void. But no amount of wealth had healed the emptiness left by the father who walked out, or the childhood filled with silence and struggle. And yet, today, a stranger's child had cracked open something inside him. He saw Claire, the tired-looking mother, walking hand in hand with her daughter across the gravel lot. Her coat was thin. Her shoes soaked through. But she smiled down at the little girl with a love that was fierce and unwavering. Ethan's throat tightened. For all his millions, he had never known a moment that felt this real, this human. He didn't know why, but he couldn't drive away. Not yet. Later that afternoon, the clouds had cleared, and the golden glow of the sun lit up the small-town diner on the corner of Main Street. Inside, the smell of coffee and fresh pie lingered in the air. Claire sat in a corner booth with her daughter, sharing a single plate of fries and splitting a small milkshake between two paper straws. Their laughter, light and unfiltered, filled the otherwise quiet room. Ethan stood outside, staring through the window. He hadn't meant to follow them. At least, that's what he told himself. But his feet had brought him there, as if led by something stronger than reason. He hesitated at the door, heart pounding in a way no business deal had ever made it pound. Finally, he stepped in. Claire looked up as the bell above the door jingled. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by curiosity. Ethan approached slowly, respectfully. "Hi," he said, awkwardly but kindly. "I think we were at the same church this morning. Mind if I join you for a few minutes?" Claire glanced at her daughter, who smiled brightly and scooted over without hesitation. Claire nodded cautiously. "Sure." He sat down, not as a millionaire, but as a man searching for something more. They talked, not about money, or success, or past pain, just simple things, school, the town, favorite colors. For the first time in years, Ethan laughed. And Claire smiled, really smiled, as if something in her heart had quietly begun to heal. The weeks that followed brought unexpected warmth into Claire's small, quiet world. Ethan kept coming back, not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, but with time, with presence, with kindness that asked for nothing in return. He showed up one Saturday morning with a toolbox, offering to fix the broken kitchen faucet. Another time, he helped Claire carry groceries home when her arms were full. Sometimes he came by just to read stories with the little girl, who had taken to calling him Mr. Ethan, with cheerful excitement. Their bond grew slowly, naturally, like sunlight through a window that had been closed for far too long. One chilly evening, as leaves danced across the sidewalk, Ethan stopped by with takeout and a board game. Laughter filled the living room as they played, the kind of laughter that comes when people stop pretending they're okay and start realizing they actually might be. After dinner, the little girl crawled into his lap, holding a worn-out stuffed bunny, her eyes full of trust. "You came again," she whispered, smiling sleepily. "I prayed again too." Ethan felt his heart twist. He blinked, trying to hold back tears. He gently hugged her close and whispered, "I think God heard you, sweetheart." Across the room, Claire watched, her hand covering her mouth, eyes glistening. For the first time in years, someone had shown up and stayed. Not out of pity, but out of something real. And for the first time in a long time, she believed love might still find her. The church looked almost the same as it did that rainy morning months ago, the stained glass windows glowing in the afternoon sun, the wooden pews polished and warm with light. But this time, everything felt different. Claire stood at the altar, radiant in a simple white dress. Her daughter, dressed like a tiny princess, held a bouquet of daisies and beamed with pride. Ethan stood beside them, his hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming feeling that he had finally found where he belonged. The same congregation that once silently prayed now watched in quiet joy. The pastor smiled, pausing as he looked over the couple. "Do you, Ethan Blake, take this woman?" "I do," he said softly, eyes never leaving Claire's. "And do you, Claire?" "I do," she whispered, voice steady and full of love. The little girl couldn't stop grinning. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, she clapped her hands, then threw her arms around both of them. "I have a daddy now," she said proudly, loud enough for the whole church to hear. The room filled with gentle laughter and soft tears. Ethan knelt beside her, holding her close. "And I have a daughter. The best one in the world." As they walked out together into the golden sunlight, hand in hand, a new family, the world felt a little softer, a little kinder. Because sometimes, the simplest prayers aren't just heard, they're answered in ways more beautiful than anyone ever imagined.